Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello all. Welcome to this course on circular economy for sustainable buildings. In the last class, I had tried to compress and tell you holistically how we can, as an architect or designer, look at reducing carbon emissions from building materials, and slowly I had transitioned to circular economy. I had started introducing the word circular economy and EPDs as part of reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. Today we will look at circular economy slightly in detail. So today we will look at what are the types of economy. Suddenly what is the circular economy we are talking of? So what are the types of economy? What is circular economy? Why do we need the circular economy? What is its importance? How does circular economy work? How can we transition to circular economy? What is the role of circular economy in resource optimization? We will also look at circular economy in built environment and how to enable circular economy in the built environment. We will look at circular economy in other sectors also. What are the challenges and barriers in applying circular economy? What are its future prospects? And what are the new innovations which leads us towards circularity? What do you mean by circularity in design? As a case, we will look at circularity in construction and demolition waste sector, and we will look at this content in two parts. So, in the first part, we will look at what are the types of economy. So, there is a rapid growth in waste generated by production. So, we need to have a sustainable approach. We need to have a different approach. Under this, we will see what is linear economy. Now, over the last, say, 1.5 century, about 150 years, the industrial economy has been dominated by a one-way model, which is of production, consumption, production, consumption. So, we keep producing goods and we keep consuming the goods from raw materials, and then that is sold, it is used, and what we don't want we discard and it goes to the landfill. See, on a long term basis, this approach is definitely not sustainable at all, and it seems to be much against nature. The way we are handling and dealing this is much against nature. So, the linear structure is based on two major assumptions that we have. First, endless and boundless availability of resources on earth. Resources means what? What we saw: water, energy, building materials. We have limitless amount of this. And second is that we can regenerate this in an infinite manner. Only in such a economy we can use something, consume, throw it, and that's the process. But in our current economy, we take materials from earth, we make products out of them, and after using the products, we throw them as waste. This is the process of linear economy. The linear structure design will focus on the product itself, how it is packed, how cheaply it is available, and we will be more hungry for more and more types of products. So we will manufacture more products, we will sell more products without understanding what goes in the process of manufacture, what goes in the process of consuming. We will be blind to all that. And then once the product becomes obsolete, throw it away. And throw away, there is nothing called away. You throw it, and in that process you are actually killing and damaging the land, because it goes to the landfill. And once it goes to the landfill, what happens? Rainwater, percolation, you are again polluting the aquifers below. Sometimes planned obsolescence has been built in even for products that can actually last longer. This is done so that we can accommodate more new branded items. Easiest example is cell phone. A particular cell phone works very well, but we don't want to keep it. We want to move to a higher version of it. Then the next economy or next model is the circular economy. Circular design challenges a generation of products and materials in such a way that you use minimum amount of raw material. That name itself implies that the focus is primarily on circularity against a linearity. So, the focus of a circular design will be on curtailing a value loss embedded in these products and materials by keeping them in a closed loop. So, this is how a circular economy will work. So, it is an industrial system that is restorative and regenerative, because that is your intention and that is the design. It replaces end of life concept with the concept of restoration, and it shifts us closer to renewable sources of energy, and it eliminates the use of toxic chemicals which can impair the the biosphere, and it can also aim for eliminating waste through a much better quality of design of materials, design of the product, design of the system, and the business model in total. So, if you look at the types of economy, here we can classify as linear economy, recycling economy, which is a via media between linear economy and the third one, which is the circular economy. In a linear economy, you take, make, use a product and dispose the product. For example, the ballpoint pens that we use today. For example, okay. In a recycling economy, you take, make, use, recycle or rework at least a particular aspect, and then you dispose. An example to this I will give: ballpoint pen with changeable refills. So, once a particular refill is no, I don't know whether your generation even knows that a ballpoint pen actually has a refill which we used to keep changing. Once the refill is over, we will throw it away. But that is only throwing a part of the pen. The entire pen is not thrown away. And then you have a circular economy where you take, make, reduce, reuse, regenerate, recycle, refurbish and repurpose. A good example of this can be a fountain pen, where nothing gets thrown. You keep using it and you keep refilling it with ink every time. That is what you actually do. Let's now look at the concept. The concept of linear economy is that resources are extracted, they are used to make products, and after using those products, they are discarded as waste after use. Whereas, if we look at the via media recycling economy, in this the materials are collected after disposal and they are recycled to create new products, thereby reducing the reliance on virgin resources. So, there is a reduction and there is a recycling involved. Whereas circular economy, the resources are kept in use for as long as possible, 50 years, 100 years, 30 years, as long as possible, through means of reuse, repair, remanufacturing, and finally recycling as the last option within a closed loop system. What are the characteristics of each of this type of economy? The linear economy is driven by high resource consumption, significant waste generation, depletion of resources and environmental degradation. Whereas recycling economy focuses on managing the waste after it is created. It reduces the environmental impact, note reduces. It is limited in scope as not all materials are recyclable and recycling also requires a considerable amount of energy. The circular economy minimizes resource extraction and waste generation. It prioritizes designing products for long life and end of cycle recovery. It emphasizes renewable energy and regenerative practices in order to maintain the ecological balance. If we look at how waste is managed in each of this economy, linear economy is high waste generation, in fact highest waste generation. Here in recycling economy, there is partial recycling of some waste and the other waste goes away like the linear economy. Whereas the circular economy is designed to ensure that there is no waste. Let us look at the environmental impact. Linear economy has very high and bad environmental impact. Recycling economy has medium, it strikes a via media, and circular economy has the lowest environmental impact. If we look at what are the aspects that the impact happens, linear economy contributes to pollution, climate change and also biodiversity loss. The recycling economy does not fundamentally alter the resource intensive and waste generating structure of the linear economy, but the circular economy addresses a systematic inefficiencies. It fosters sustainability and reduces environmental harm while also promoting economic and social benefit. If we look at the economic model of each of this, the linear economy is not sustainable. It is short term and disposable, whereas recycling economy is transitional and circular economy is long term, regenerative, sustainable over a long period of time. What drives the linear economy? The linear economy is driven in terms of its input and production due to cheap and widely available primary raw materials. Also, industries and networks built around primary raw materials, which makes it reliable and easy to ask, demand and specify. Also, in linear economy, cheap labor is exploited and it is globalized because it is an interdependent market. The sale has to be in mass scale and there has to be a large exodus of consumer. It's highly consumeristic. and it lacks accountability. If we look at the use in linear economy, the products and materials are made as disposable and treated as disposable. You take, use and throw it. That's it. After the use, there is no other question of reuse, recycle, reconsideration, nothing. There is a lack of culture of repair and maintenance in the linear economy, and also it is considered a culture of convenience because you don't have to think anything when you use a product. You use a product and throw it. It is definitely driven by a desire to restore and reuse, but definitely does not happen because it lacks reuse. The materials that you use become secondary raw materials, and recycling infrastructure along with lack of space, knowledge, skills makes it non-recyclable. The market pricing of new versus refurbished or reused materials is not so strong in a linear economy. So what happens as a output and end of life? Waste production is not very well monitored or regulated. There is disposing of end of life materials and it is still seen as a viable, acceptable norm and option. Legal barriers prevent easy reuse of certain materials. Land in cities is expensive and low value activities like composting, waste management, repair cannot be afforded on that land. We don't have a system, we don't have that culture in the linear economy. Cost is it's not included to reuse a product, and there is lack of viable alternatives to the current waste system. But how do you understand circular economy from sustainable perspective? We definitely have planetary boundaries, and this defines a social foundation for human needs and an ecological ceiling for Earth's capacity, because I told you we will need many more Earths if we live in the same manner. The safe and just space for humanity exists between these two limits, because for every one person driving a car, there are 10 people riding a bullock cart and 50 people riding a bicycle and 150 people walking. This is just a random number I am saying just to tell you what is the justice and equity consequence of not having a circular economy. Therefore, a circular economy will ensure that there is equity, economic activity will also stay within the safe place. Now, if we remove economic activity from the finite resources, then by following the circular economy, we can have economic growth and resource limit, because economic activity should grow without bypassing and surpassing the limited resources that Earth has. Second is circular economy solution. The circular economy will help us in reducing non-renewable sources and regenerate renewable sources. Also, if we look at true cost pricing, material should be priced to reflect the environmental and social impact, as against what is currently happening, which is more consumer driven economics. Then incentivizing reuse and recycle is very important, because virgin materials are used. So, higher prices for virgin material will promote the use of old material by recycling it. So, this will drive the circular economy and circular model. Also, the local governments should set circularity baselines and targets, thus focusing on countries which exceed the planetary boundaries. The key lies in how a particular product or a material is designed and how different aspects and requirements are balanced. The design phase will influence the product's life and the ease of its reprocessing. And hence, here designers have the opportunity to consider durability, compatibility, modularity, multitasking functions of any product they design. Also, what I mean by safe and just space for humanity in circular economy is it can consider the various social foundations of people getting water, food, health, education, energy, equally, or at least in equitable terms, which is not possible in a linear economy, and that can broaden itself to achieving network or transport, housing, gender equality, social equity, income and work, peace and justice, political voice, all of this translating and bypassing the ecological ceiling to ensure that we have enough resources to combat climate change, ocean acidification, chemical pollution, nitrogen and phosphorus loading, freshwater withdrawals, land conversion, biodiversity loss, air pollution, and ozone layer depletion. All of this can be reduced if we follow the circular economy. What are the larger design principles of a circular economy? Now, a circular economy is a system where materials never become a waste and their nature is to get regenerated. So, in a circular economy, whatever product you design or whatever materials you keep are always in circulation through processes like maybe maintenance, reuse, refurbishment, or you can remanufacture it, you can recycle it, or ultimately it can be composed. So, in the circular economy, the chances of tackling climate change and other global challenges like biodiversity loss or waste, pollution, all the other factors that we saw in the previous slide, they become very high in a circular economy because the principle is that there is consumption of finite resources and we all have to deal with handling the finite resources in a very responsible manner. So, the circular economy is based on primarily these three principles. First is eliminate waste and pollution. Second is circulate products and materials at their highest value. And third is regenerate nature. So, this is underpinned by a transition to renewable energy and materials. So, a circular economy is very robust and resilient and it should actually do a lot good to businesses, people and the environment. Now, design for attachment and trust, as we say, is one of the 6 design strategy for longer lasting products. So, how can we achieve that? We can achieve that by first design for attachment and trust. What does that mean? It means it is about creating products that you will love, that people will like, for which there is more trust in that particular product. The second strategy is that we can design for durability. Now, design for durability means this is about developing the products that is able to withstand long duration of wear and tear. Third is design for standardization and compatibility. So, this is aimed at creating products with parts that fit other products as well. For example, if you make a washer, that washer should be standardized so that it can fit into any design of taps. If you design a tap which has exclusive spare parts in it, naturally waste will become more because it is not standardized. It is way too customized. And because of this, we will be able to repair a product over a long time because availability of spare parts, maintenance and repair will be very easy. So, one way of making sure or facilitating that people actually maintain the product instead of discarding it is that we should be able to provide them the spare parts and know-hows to maintain that product and repair that product. If the coil of a rice cooker gets damaged, we discard the entire rice cooker. Instead, we can just change the coil and keep using that rice cooker. First is that mentality has to come. Second is that awareness at every level, including the person who repairs it, the manufacturer, the repairer, the consumer. It should come at every level. Then design for upgradability and adaptability. So, this will allow future expansion as well as any modification that is required, because not only will a product or a product context is changing, but also the user's requirement is changing. And by being able to actually adapt that particular gadget or product in another scenario of the user, you can be very sure that the user will not discard the product but keep it for a much longer period of time. I'll give you one very simple example. Design of a rope. Now first you use that rope as a clothesline. Now if you don't need a clothesline, you can use it probably as a skipping rope, or you may use it even for doing some stretches of yoga poses, or you can use it to pack cartons and bags and so on. So we can have, see, this is such a mundane example of I'm giving of a rope, but it can have multiple uses if you design the rope also in that manner. When I say design the rope in terms of its texture, I mean it should not be too rough. See, if we are going to use it for packaging or skipping, it should not cut the hands when we use it. So, it should be smooth, it should be made of durable material, it should have enough strength to handle multiple tasks. And then we should also be able to design for disassembly and reassembly, which we will look at in greater detail, because by doing this we ensure that the product part can be spared and reassemble easily. So, if you have any gadget that stays, you know, uh, that stays whole as close as it was to the product in the first place, then you can apply product attachment, love for the product. But if you take it apart and operate at parts level, then you actually can go a long way from a state in which the product was originally produced. So, the product's integrity gets lowered at that point, and all the different strategies along this scale which we have explained started getting diminished at the level of product integrity itself. Let's now look at the principles of circular economy. The first and very important principle of circular economy is to eliminate waste and also pollution, which is totally against the concept of linear economy. So, this is the first principle of circular economy, and that is we have to eliminate pollution and waste. As of now, the economy that we are working on is a take, make, waste system. So, you take, you make something, you consume something and you throw it away as a waste. We take raw materials from the earth, we convert that into a useful product and eventually we use it. After using it, we consider it a waste and we throw it away, whether it is your simple ballpoint pen or even your tire of your two-wheeler. So much of this waste goes only to landfills or sometimes to incinerators, and it is lost forever as a pollution no source. So it becomes a source of pollution. So this system cannot work over a long period of time because the resources on earth is finite, and also the earth cannot take that much of pollution. So what is the problem and what is the solution? According to me, the problem and the solution will start with design. So we have many products in the market that there is no onward path after we use it. Once you use something, your keyboard, you use it, it gets repaired, you end up throwing it. Although it looks like a waste in certain conditions, especially when you look at the function for which you have bought, it is actually becoming a waste because of design choices. Because there is no waste in nature. It's a concept that we have only introduced. So, the economy is filled with things that were designed without asking what will happen after its purpose is solved at the end of its life. Therefore, we need to shift from linear economy to circular economy. This can happen by shifting our mindset, and we should start treating waste as a flaw in design. So, a waste is actually a design flaw. In a circular economy, a specification for any design is that the materials again re-enter the system. So, the material keeps moving and entering back into the system. So, many products can be circulated by being well maintained. We can share some products, we can reuse the products, we can repair and then use it. We could refurbish and use it. Say for if I take a rice cooker, example of a rice cooker. If it gets repaired, we can change that particular part which is causing the malfunction of the rice cooker and use it. That is repairing. Refurbishing means suppose the paint gets worn out or it is getting rusted, we can repaint it, refurbish and use it. Or you can remanufacture as a last resort, because recycling a product sometimes can take a lot of energy too. So, with the focus on design, we can eliminate the concept of waste, and that is where we as architect, designers and civil engineers play an important part. The second principle is circulate products and materials. So, what you need to understand is we need to retain the value of products and materials by keeping them in use for as long as possible. So, we can have what is called as technical cycle for products for services. There are two cycles. One is technical cycle, another is biological cycle for products for consumption. In the technical cycle, you will focus primarily on maintenance, reuse, repair and refurbishment. Okay, but in a biological cycle, you will focus on biodegradable materials which can be returned to earth through composting or anaerobic digestion. So, the cycle is more from, and there is an important role of design where we can retain the value of the product and material by keeping them in use for as long as possible. We can prevent its waste by all these methods: reusing, repairing, remanufacturing, recycling and so on. So, the focus in a technical cycle is only maintenance, whereas in a biological cycle it again goes back to earth. And when if you look at the role of design, products should be designed to facilitate circulation in either technical or biological cycle. So, when you design a product, ensure that you are able to repair and reuse the product, or it can go back to earth as a composted material, adding value to the soil. This approach will ensure the longevity of our resources and it will also reduce waste and promote sustainability. The third principle is regenerate nature. So, the third principle of the circular economy is to regenerate nature. This can happen when we move away from take, make, waste linear economy to a circular economy. We support natural processes and leave more room for nature to thrive. This can start from extraction to regeneration. So, when we shift our economy to a circular economy, we will shift the focus from extraction to regeneration. Instead of continuously degrading nature, we will build some natural capital. We will employ farming practices that can allow nature to rebuild the soil, increase the biodiversity, and return biological materials to the earth. As of now, most of these materials are lost after use, and the land used to grow them is also losing all the nutrients. The second one is we need more space for nature. In a circular economy, the land is dedicated to material sourcing, and this will increasingly be focused on renewable resources. So, this will be grown in a regenerative way rather than the extraction of finite materials, which will increasingly remain in circulation. All this will be underpinned by a transition to a 100% renewable energy source, because this can be infinitely produced if we use renewable energy, and it will support our design to reuse, repair, remanufacture and recycle. Besides, tackling climate change. So, if we transition to a renewable energy source, that can tackle even up to 55% of global greenhouse gas emission. The rest can come from the way we produce these gadgets or products, and also the way we grow our food and manage the land. This is where circular economy becomes very, very important. So today I introduced you to various types of economy such as linear economy and circular economy, and we have seen the principles and significance of circular economy in today's context. So, with this I will stop today's class, and we will continue next class with a continuation of circular economy and certain other aspects of it. Thank you.